Welcome to Bitcoin Escape Plan. You may have noticed Bitcoin climbing to key psychological levels that we've mentioned before on the channel. Today's video, we're going to go over, is this momentum likely to continue, or where are the points where we're going to start seeing resistance form and potentially test back lower once again. In general, we are still looking at this 4-hour trend to pay attention to the reaction to about 73.8K. We'll go over that a little bit later on in the video. And then later on in the video, I will go over my trades from in here. Very happy, was able to close an 18% profit, which is dope. Because like I said in the last video, I lost like 88 cents on the first one. So I did re-enter. We'll go over that later. So first, before we get into the 4-hour chart, if you are new to this channel, you can go over to bitcoinescapeplan.com and subscribe so you can see the weekly newsletters delivered directly to your email. Every week on Monday, I go over the key levels and timeframes that you need to be paying attention to. So go check that out if you are new to the channel, bitcoinescapeplan.com. Let's get into it. 4-hour chart. So a lot's going on at the moment. We are pretty safely above the middle band of the anchored VWAP as of Sunday, March 1st, which is good. That is good at the moment. That means we're going to make a test for the upper band, and the upper band is, let me see actually which one it is. I think it's this one. I believe it is this one. Yeah, because that's another one. The upper band is about 95.2K, 95.4, my correction. Which means that the price will trend toward that direction, but I do not believe it will get there. And there's a couple things that are in the way of it getting there. But again, we'll go over that in the higher time frames a little bit later on in the video. So at the moment, we showed some resistance over on Monday at this 68.9K Fibonacci pivot. Let's just call it 69K. And then the price was able to go back down, retest strongly on the 4-hour SMA. And then as it was coming back to that level, pretty much ripped right through it. This candle actually got to a high of 69.62, so still below that 70.2K pivot we've talked about a bunch of times, which we did fail here earlier in that day. And then, as you can see, this morning, we've just risen right through that. So congratulations to anyone who happened to be in this trade. Really, this would have been your entry over here on Saturday, which would be a pretty nice trade at the moment, to be honest. And that is still what we're looking for. So what we're looking for at the moment is actually a short, not a long. And again, I'll go over that later on in the video when I'm going over my trades specifically. So at the moment, we've shot through, now remember, 69K is the psychological level, 2021 all-time high, 73.8K, or as the Fibonacci reads, 73.6K, is the highest point in March of 2024, which was right after the ETFs, and is the first time in Bitcoin's history where we reach a new all-time high that early in the halving year, which to me, very, very important. Not necessarily going to act as support, but currently it is forming a bit of resistance. As you can see here, this last 4-hour candle literally went to, oh no, actually it did go above it. Okay, well, there you go. Went to 74. So it went to slightly above that. That's 73.8K by like $200, like just barely. I think that must have been in the ending part of that because I did not see that when I was looking at the chart earlier. So at the moment, what we want to pay attention to, this is a downtrend anchored VWAP that I set up for the all-time highs. So we broke below it. Jesus, a while ago. Oh my God. We broke below it all the way over here Thursday in January. Oh my God, we broke below it a long time ago. So literally in January, it's been dropping this whole time, and we have now gone back above it, which means we are likely going to go towards the middle of that band. The middle of that band is right here at 86.8K. And as we've talked about in other videos, I do believe, and we'll actually just snap over to the weekly real quick, I do believe that this monthly SMA is going to continue to get dragged down, and we probably won't interact with it until somewhere between 80K and 84K, I think is most realistic. And the price is behaving that way at the moment. You know, this is the weekly chart, so we either have to retain this momentum and continue into the end of the week, which is totally possible, or it's more likely that we give back some of it. Again, if we show resistance at this 73.8K level, which we are currently showing resistance as of the time of me recording this, and we are above the 50% mark of these ranges, which is super important. I've talked about that in other videos as well. The longer we spend below this 50% mark, the more pressure it's going to put on another retest of 64. Whereas at the moment, we're showing some strength, but like I would hesitate to trust that personally. Like we chopped for 3 weeks at these levels, and now in one candle we're magically above it. Like it's kind of the same as this, where we chopped for a while and then just gave it up. So I wouldn't really be surprised if we just chop for a while, we rise a bit, and then give it back up. I just would expect that to be closer to the 80 to 84K level. So just to look at the short term one more time before we commit to the long term, that's really what we want to pay attention to, is how does the price behave at 73.6, 73.8K? Does it need to retrace? If it were going to retrace, where is it going to go to? There's two likely stops. One, 70.8K, that pivot right there. And as you can see, that's like right around 71 that those candles closed. The wick is just below that. So 70.75, 70.8, I would believe that the price will probably, for the rest of the day, and again, I'll talk about what I'm planning on doing trading wise at the end of this video, but what I would imagine is the rest of the day will start trending back towards that, even if it doesn't get all the way there, just by the nature of, I think we're up like 7 or 8% today or something like that. Like a pretty decent amount already. Yeah, like a 9% on the day, which is a great day. I don't think that this would have been a clear entry for anyone. So again, congratulations if you took that. I don't think that was very blatantly obvious compared to this guy. But that's what we're looking for at the moment, is the reaction to 73.8, 73.6, because again, if we look at it in historical terms, that is this moment right here. So ETFs go live December, January. There's an initial spike into February that leads into the peak of the rally in March. It then retraces for a while until later on during the election, and that's when we shoot right back above it. So even this, like this guy here, that's 73.6, like directly on the nose. So I think that's part of why we are having to check the price there, is it's right about those two wicks pretty much. The October recovery wick, as well as the March 2024 initial all-time high wick. Super important. But since they are wicks, they're not necessarily good signs of support or resistance. Like the candle closes are actually better, and the candle closes at 71.2K roughly. So that would actually be the point where we would more likely start to see some support form, which again is slightly above this. So it's like right in here basically. So I would imagine we see a retest into that level. If 70.8K and 71.2K can hold, then there's no need to retest the 70.2K one. And it does seem like we've got two wicks right around there at 70.1 in recent history. Another one right there as well, pretty close to that. So it's not unreasonable to me that the price would try and confirm that as support, essentially, before it is ready to completely move on. It's possible that this already was that, but we don't stay above the 4-hour SMA for that long in this part of the cycle. As you can see, we spend a lot of time below it, but we don't really spend a tremendous amount of time above it. I mean, this is January. This is the last time we spent a decent amount of time above it. Even going back all the way to the highs over here. Sorry, this is taking me a while to scroll through. This is October. Proper high is here. So as you can see here, we spent a decent amount of time above it, but even there, we still spent long periods of time below it, slight period of time above, long period of time below, slight period above, long time below, long time below, slight period above, short time below. You know, like we chop on the 4-hour quite a bit. And again, the overall trend is just like not really favoring the bulls at the moment, even if it seems like it. Like that's not a bullish trend. Like it's not what it looks like, you know. That definitely still has bearish pressure. And again, if we're looking purely at like the levels where we're going to face some form of rejection, would be if we can get to 76.2K this week, I would say that's pretty strong, to be honest. That actually, I mean, this is the monthly chart, so I don't think it fully reflects this guy, but that would give us enough, you know, of a reliable indicator that we are still going to see that rise into the weekly SMA, which again, I've been talking about since probably January. You know, I did think at the time that it was going to be up here, but that SMA continued to get pulled lower and lower. And that's what I was talking about earlier, where I really think that we're not going to have an interaction with the SMA until somewhere between 80K and 80.4K, or 84K rather. This being 80K being the old Fibonacci pivot, an important level within that initial breakdown in the range in 2025 that you all remember, I'm sure. And then again, we wicked down to that initially in November and held it for a while before giving it up. So what we need to see now is, does that act as support or resistance? And then we kind of just need to see how price reacts to 96K rather, up here. So the weekly SMA is what we would interact with before there. So obviously we just need to see, you know, at the moment, it's looking like we're going to hit this Fibonacci pivot before we interact with that, which is good, because if, God forbid, for whatever reason, we chop for another 3-4 weeks, this SMA is probably going to be right below the 80K pivot and just sitting above the 76.2K pivot, which just does not really put a ton of bullish pressure on the price. Like it definitely is going to put downside pressure on the price and act as resistance. So I would be cautious of anyone who tells you that it's looking like we are about to go to all-time highs, because that's just not reflected by at least a 20-week SMA. Maybe you can show me an EMA or a standard moving average that is, you know, more indicative of this trend. But for me, that is not what it looks like. It looks like it's going to continue to break down lower, probably, like I said, somewhere between 80 and 84K. That's where the price would interact with it. And that has been what I've been saying since about January, is that I expect we'll see a final relief rally, lower high, into the end of March and potentially early April. I don't know the exact timing of that, but that is what I've been calling out, is that we were going to see a bottoming in February. It took all of February before we start to see some action into March. And then really today specifically, I'm just waiting to see, after 1 p.m. Los Angeles time, they'll do the overnight hours for Coinbase perpetual futures, which means you have to have more margin in order to do them. And I think we're probably going to see this level start to get back some of the momentum that it has when we do that. So before I jump into the trade analysis real quick, I'm just going to go over the daily time frame. So again, super bearish for a long period of time. This is really the first time where we've showed any type of consolidation on the daily. We are well above it at the moment after closing above it 2 days in a row. This was a decent close on Tuesday. We closed at 68.3. Still lower than we would like, but obviously, as you can see, today the candle is not too upset about it. And pretty much it's the same trend, you know, where we spend periods of time above it and then give it up. This must be January, yeah. The overall trend is still bearish. Like, it doesn't matter what time frame you look on, the overall trend is still bearish. Now, let's get into the trade. This is very important. So I'm going to go over the one that I took the other day first, and then I will go over the one that I'm looking for today and why I have not taken it yet. So this one over here, my initial entry, I believe, what is this? That's Wednesday. Nope, wrong one, sorry. My initial entry over here was, I believe, like 70 or 69.4 or something like that. And what happened, and I mentioned this in Monday's video, what happened was it got to 1 p.m. PST and the overnight margin requirement kicked in, and I got closed out of the position because I have like $130 in that Coinbase account. Like I'm just testing this until I can validate my strategy, and then I'll put more money into it. I just want to go slow and build up wins. So what I did, and again, for anyone who's new to the channel, what I'm primarily looking for with these trades specifically is breaks of the 4-hour Bollinger Band, either to the bottom side or the top side indicating a short, bottom side indicating a long. So in this particular instance, the one we're looking for today would be a short. The one that I took on Monday was a short. So that initial one I got closed, even though I was correct, and they even like the contract closed in profit and I still lost money. That was confusing to me, but definitely something I'm paying attention to now for that 1 hour of the day where it's overnight, is sometimes it might just be worth it to re-enter the trade after that. Or again, if you just have more cash in the account. I will eventually have way more cash in the account, so I'm not worried about it. So I caught it from roughly, I actually don't remember my exact entry on the second one. It actually might have been 68.4 on the bottom side. And I was closer to up here, I think 69.8 or something like that when I first entered. I really wish that I had the margin in to keep that first trade. So that first trade would have been great. I would have made like 40% of my money for the day. Instead, I only made 18, which is still very good. It was somewhere around here. And I closed that trade at like 1:15 in the morning, Los Angeles time. So I waited until I saw an interaction with the SMA, and then I did close it, and it went lower. Like I could have got whatever, an extra probably 5 to 10% out of that, because it's a 10x leverage contract. So I mean it only went another whatever that is, 1%. So yeah, it would have been another 10% on the trade. Like I said, if I had been able to keep my entry here, that's 40% on your money. Very appealing trade. And again, these are the Nano BTC perpetual futures contracts that I am now trading over on the Coinbase. So, and then I didn't do anything yesterday because I didn't see any clear entries. And again, like my rationale for this is I'm looking for my entries only off of the Bollinger Band breaks, because we spend most of our time in between. You know, we touch the SMA way more often than we touch the Bollinger Bands. Therefore, which one of those would have been an appealing entry? Can you tell me? Can you tell me which one would have been an appealing entry? Because I could not tell you. You know, like I would not be able to look at that and say, oh, that's an entry. But I can clearly look at that and say, oh, that's a long entry. Just like I can look at this and say, oh, that's a short entry. So I'm waiting at the moment. Like I said, we're showing some weakness at 63.8K or 73.8K rather, which again, as I went over earlier in the video, that is a psychological level from the March of 2024 all-time high, as well as where the wick got to in October before the November election. And then obviously it ripped right through that. But what that means as well is that we just don't have very much volume at those levels. Like you can see, look how thin the volume profile is between about 81.5K to about 72.1. It's very thin. You know, there's just not a significant amount of buyers or sellers in that range, which is going to put more pressure on the people up here when price does get there. You know, if my average cost is 88K or 89 or 96K, it looks way more appealing for me to take losses when we're sitting over here at 80 than it does when we're sitting at 60. So you have to remember that all of these people up here who bought, who are probably, you know, less educated in Bitcoin for them to have put significant size there or whatever. I guess it's just the ETF buyers, theoretically. Those people are not going to have strong conviction when, oh, damn it, I didn't mean to do that. When the price, you know, reaches those levels. It's going to be more likely that those people want to sell than these people want to buy more. You know, hopefully that makes sense. So me personally, I'm going to wait to see a little bit more confirmation of weakness here. I'm probably going to wait until, I guess, 2 p.m. PST Los Angeles time, just so I don't have to worry about having extra margin for the position. And then I will be looking for essentially the same short. This is not financial advice. I'm just walking you through my rationale for this. I would again expect we're probably going to have a retest towards this guy if we cannot hold this 73.6K pivot. We'll head back towards that downtrend anchor VWAP. And quite frankly, I would be happy with closing it there. And that probably is where I'll close it. No, not what I was clicking. You son of a bitch. What the fuck? Dude, I hate hotkeys sometimes. So that was, oh my God, that's almost a 3% trade. Probably about a 3% trade, depending on where I actually get my entry from. So that's very good. That's going to be 30% of my money if I catch the whole thing today. And I probably would wait to see this pivot, but again, 30% on your money just from there to there. Really, really good trade. Again, how I was able to decide to close the trade there was because basically when I think of my rules for an entry, a gold star would be a candle close outside of the Bollinger Band. That's a gold star. A silver star would be a wick outside of the Bollinger Band, but a candle close inside. Now, that's a very thin candle, but that is a candle close kind of inside. It might be like right. It's hard to call that one. I mean, either way, that's a brilliant entry price, and in most cases, it still ends up being a good entry price. It's just a little bit riskier than this guy is a more clear one. This guy is a more clear one. So that's what we're looking for at the moment. Is this one technically you could have shorted from here to here, and you could have caught a 1 or 2% trade retracement between, if you were up at midnight and could close it whatever by 4 a.m. in the morning. So that's for anyone in London time. This would have been a trade that you were looking for based off of, again, this is the downtrend anchored VWAP that I set from the 126 all-time highs, which normally I just leave my long-term one, but I have started to use downtrend ones as well, just out of curiosity, and it gives good information. So that's what I'm looking for at the moment, is to see how do we hold up against this 73.6K level going into the overnight hours. We have about 23 minutes until overnight hours, so we'll see if the overwhelmingly bullish momentum can sustain, or if more likely we're going to have to sell some of that off. Nope, didn't mean to do that. And that's when I'll be looking to enter a short. I would be entering now if I had way more cash in that Coinbase account, but again, I'm trying to build it from, like, I put $100 in and I'm at $136, baby. Like, I'm starting slow. I really want to validate this trading strategy and see how accurately it works. And so far, very accurate. Technically, like I said, I lost 88 cents on that first trade, but I was correct about the trade. They closed it in profit, and I just somehow lost money because of liquidation, I guess. And then the second one, I got, I think it was like 18.7%, which is very good. I made whatever, like $13 on the $70 that I put in. Which doesn't sound like a lot, but that becomes quite a lot of money. If you have $1,000 in at that means you made $180 off of the price moving 1.8%, which is crazy. That happens literally every day. The only reason I didn't take a trade yesterday is, again, we didn't have a Bollinger Band interaction. We had an SMA interaction. We have SMA interactions all the time. And how I think about it is I'll use an SMA interaction as a means to exit a position. Like had I bought over here. This is when I put money into the account and I didn't take the trade, but I very much should have taken that trade. Your take profit 1 would have been, depending on how you structure your trades, would have been somewhere in here. Take profit 2 would have been somewhere in here. And then take profit 3 would have definitely been an interaction with the SMA. But if you were going to wait, another like 3 or 4 days, essentially, assuming that you had the margin for overnight hours, which again, sometimes it favors you to really wait on these leverage positions, because you can make, this is an obscene, say you caught it here, that's an obscene trade. That would be 160% on your money if you were trading 10x leverage contracts on that. 160% on your money. So that's $1,000 turning into whatever, fucking $2,600. It's very good for just a couple days. That was literally, like I said, Friday, Saturday. So that's what we're looking for at the moment, is how does the price react to 73.6/73.8K? Does it need to give back some momentum? If it does, it will likely head towards this downtrend anchored VWAP at 71.3, 71.4K before potentially, I would imagine we get a candle close above that and a wick down to 70.8, which again, I will happily take that short. There's no way I could have known to take this long. That would have been a highly risky trade where, again, you could be correct. Cool. This one tells me really clearly that there is a short on the horizon and I just have to be willing to take it. The same way where I re-entered like in here, I think, maybe even this one. I guess it was this one. Knowing that there was risk that I was going to get stopped out if we went back in this direction. And I pretty much just watched that trade for most of the day. I mean, that's at whatever, 16, so what is that, 2 o'clock? I think I entered that trade like 2 or 3 o'clock, something like that. And then I just let it run for the rest of the day and I lucked out. I'm very happy with that. I would imagine something similar today where it'll probably give back some of the momentum from today, head towards that anchored VWAP downtrend, head towards 70.8K, probably show strength there initially. I don't want to like seem completely bullish or bearish rather. And like I've said multiple times earlier on in this video and several others, I do think we are going to move towards, I mean, this is 86.7K at the moment, but I think by the time we actually get there, that's going to get pulled down further. I mean, as you can see, only a couple days ago, it was way higher, considerably higher. So that's just going to continue to get dragged down further and further by the time that we interact with it. And again, I would imagine we probably see weakness on that. That's the downtrend anchored VWAP that I set. I would imagine we probably see weakness on that because again, same as the longer term time frame one, when you are coming from the top band and you are interacting with the middle band, typically that is going to put more pressure towards you breaking the middle band and heading towards the bottom one. So since we have broken through the bottom band of this downtrend anchored VWAP, our best case would get to the middle band, and then we would have a possibility of rising towards this higher one, but I don't think so. That one, that's at 102K on the downtrend anchored VWAP. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't even believe that we're going to hit the elder VWAP at 95.4K. I don't think so. I think that the peak in January of 97.9K is the peak for Bitcoin in 2026. You can quote me on that. That's fine. I don't really care if I'm wrong. I have so much exposure to Bitcoin. I'm not really worried about it, but that is what I believe, is that that was the peak and that we will continue to see a breakdown of the price for most of the rest of the year. Why? Very simply put, because when tremendous liquidity enters the market next year, it will benefit rich people more if Bitcoin is cheap than if it is not cheap. That's how wealth is made, is by large swings of capital. Gold is still ripping. SPY is starting to get boring. Bitcoin is starting to recover a little bit, but again, like I said, I really think that this is just going to be an opportunity for anyone above these levels to reduce their losses. Down here, they're in significant loss. Up here, they're in slightly less loss. You know, it's going to put tremendous pressure. You got to think about the conviction and the psychology of those buyers. They didn't know what they were doing, or they were convinced that the price was going to go up here. So those people are either going to have to wait for literally 5 years. Like, you need to understand the psychology. I'll go over this briefly before I end the video. You need to understand the basic psychology of how Bitcoin works, which is if you buy the top, then congratulations, you now have to wait 5 years until you are certain that the price is going to stay above that point forever. Same as over here. If you had bought the 2017 peak, you would have had to wait until 2022 into 2023 in order to be certain that the price was never going there again. And it will be the same for this time. Those highs in 2021, we will break below them and continue into the end of the year. By the end of the year, we'll have bottomed and started to move back up. And anyone who bought the peak in 2021 will not be in guaranteed profits forever until probably January of 2027. and then they'll be chilling for the rest of their lives. So these people over here, what does that mean? That means that those people are going to be not in profit guaranteed until when? 2030. 2030. So anyone who bought here, again, all these people who bought up here are going to have to wait until 2030 to be in guaranteed profits. Now, there will be periods of time, again, if 2029, if the cycle holds true, the 2029 will be the all-time high, which means I'm expecting prices somewhere in here, 200 to 240, since we didn't make it last time. But then again, same thing is going to happen, where price is going to shoot back down into 2030. And I would imagine at that point, and I've talked about this a million times on the channel, I would imagine at that point that we see 100K hold as support in that instance. I do think that this is the last cycle that we will be below 100K. I don't think we will ever be below 100K after 2026, essentially. Maybe into, let me correct that. The lows will be in 2026, and we will start climbing out of it by 2027. So sometime in 2027 will actually be the last time that we see it. It could honestly be into 2028, depending on how boring 2027 is. I don't think 2027 is going to be very boring, just because the stablecoins are actually going to go into effect. I think it's going to be pretty explosive, to be honest. So that's what we're looking for, is what is the conviction of those holders? Because reality is anyone who bought up here is going to need to wait 5 years before their Bitcoin is guaranteed to be in profit. That's a long time. That's a long time for those ETF buyers and for those low conviction holders to wait for their money to be in profit. So again, some of them are going to be way more comfortable with taking a 20% loss than a 40% loss. And some of them will take that. Some of them will take that haircut and be happier with that than having to wait 5 years, which again, not everyone understands that. But to the converse, if you were to buy, even at the 50% retracement mark, which is this guy here, you have to wait a full year essentially to be in guaranteed profits. But I really think that the price is barely going to touch that. I've said multiple times on this channel, I think 34 to 39K is likely the bottom that we hit this time, which means that if you had bought at the 50% retracement mark, which remember, that's where we are now, essentially, we're a bit above it at the moment, but it's in that same range right there, you would have essentially had to wait, in this case, we had to wait a year to be in guaranteed profits, and then you would be out of profits again for a very short period of time, like a period of 4 to 6 months. So I would still say pretty good entry. So for anyone who has been dollar cost averaging already this year, I don't think you're going to be that upset about it. There just will be a couple months in 2030 where your cost basis for these coins is technically in loss again, which is not a big deal. It will just be an opportunity for you to buy more in 2030. Because again, I would think that the bottom for 2030 is going to be somewhere up here. Even if it does briefly break below 100K, it'll be 96K, it's not going to go to 84K that next cycle. I guess unless we really don't go very high. If we only get to 180, then there's definitely a possibility that we drop well below 100 in that instance. But I'm expecting more 210, 240 as the 2029 peak. All right, that's enough rambling. I will keep you guys updated if I do enter the trade today. Specifically in the Discord, I've been going over my my trades. So if you have a question for that, you can find me on Instagram or Threads. Send me a message and I'll send you over the Discord. I'm not putting it just in the link of the YouTube video. I will connect it to the newsletter eventually, but still have not done so. But if that is something that you are interested in, just shoot me a DM on Instagram or Threads. And assuming that you're not a weirdo, I will allow you into the Discord. So that's what I'm looking for at the moment, is some type of short. It's going to be a good one, I think. It's going to be a good day, my friends. All right, I'll talk to you on Friday. Have a great day, everybody.